YouTube is just about to come online. Instagram is already here. Hello, YouTube. So if you're watching this on YouTube or on Instagram, thank you very much for joining in. Thank you very much for watching this. I wanted to just do a very quick video. I say a quick video, I might end up ranting, but I have a lot of recording to get through in the rest of this afternoon. So I wanted to do a quick video to bust a couple of myths. Many people have seen the story about Donald Trump's Italian interpreter and whether or not she was pulling funny faces at what he said. Let's get this out into the open straight away. She wasn't pulling any funny faces at what she said. That was just her concentration face. Fair enough. We've cleared the air. The interpreter was not doing anything wrong. The interpreter was not pulling any funny faces. She was just concentrating, as interpreters in diplomatic settings and conference settings and medical settings are going to do. We're going to concentrate, which means occasionally our faces might look a bit funny. Now, what I want to talk about is not so much that as the reaction to that. There's been an article on the website The Conversation claiming that this is a whole discussion about interpreter invisibility and how interpreters are always invisible, and how this story kind of somehow goes against that, how this story really flags up that interpreters are invisible and we don't see them, and all interpreters are sure that they should be invisible. It is not the truth that interpreters are supposed to be invisible or are invisible. Interpreters are visible. The very presence of an interpreter at an event changes the very nature of the event. Whether you like it or not, interpreted events are not the same as events that aren't interpreted. That's just how it is. Also, every single interpreter that we've found in field research has influenced the event in some way, has had some kind of visibility, whether they wanted it or not. The choices of interpreters make their work visible. Clients do pick up on a word that an interpreter said and suddenly start discussing it 5 minutes later. Interpreters do sometimes advise clients on how they should speak, on how they shouldn't speak. That's a whole other issue. Interpreters are in no way invisible. Now, that does not mean that we can sit on our laurels and our PR doesn't need fixed. I'm totally not saying that to anyone, okay? Interpreters do need to work on their PR. My new book, Interpreters versus Machines, comes out in December, has 2 entire chapters on interpreter PR, including the invisibility myth. You know, we're not invisible, we're not ghosts. Oh, and also while I'm here, there have been claims in both practical interpreting and in interpreting studies that clients prefer interpreters to be invisible. Clients only say they want interpreters to act like machines when we give them questions that suggest that we should act like machines. That's it. Clients do seem to default to this idea of just tell me what the person said, but if you ask them what they mean by that, no 2 clients agree. So it's a myth that interpreters are invisible. It's a myth that clients think we should be invisible, because when you start asking them questions about what they want at their particular event, they're far more interested in the event being a success than an interpreter's disappearing into the background. You know, if visible interpreting will help their event, clients want visible interpreting. Really, really simple. What's the takeaway from this? A couple of takeaways. One, if we think the Donald Trump interpreter discussion at the moment is about interpreter visibility, we're completely missing the point. The Donald Trump interpreter saga is really about how myths travel on the internet so quickly and how misunderstandings of interpreting can actually be damaging for everyone. Everyone who was ready to get that interpreter in trouble for showing emotion, I would like to ask you to calm down and think about what you are saying. Okay? Interpreters show emotion because we are human. Myths travel on the internet far quicker than truth does. We all know that. But that's dangerous. And so what the latest Donald Trump interpreter discussion tells us more than anything else is that if we're going to pass something on, especially something about other interpreters, we really need to check that we've got it right first. Sorry to sound lectury, but I'm sorry, when the reputation of the profession is at risk, when the reputation of individual interpreters is at risk, someone has to come up and say that. Don't spread stuff about other interpreters unless you're absolutely sure. And even then, you're better going to the person yourself first, okay? Don't spread controversial negative stuff about other interpreters. It's just not professional, okay? So that's the first thing that this interpreter thing Donald Trump interpreter discussion tells us. The second thing that the Donald Trump interpreter discussion tells us is that the vast majority of people misunderstand interpreting. We need to educate ourselves, and we need to educate the people who use interpreters that our default place, our default standard is making a difference. Our default standard is that the event will be different because we're here. By virtue of the fact, apart from anything else, that we're there. So people who don't speak the same language as a speaker can suddenly now understand. That's creating visibility, whether we like it or not. But really, it's dangerous to misunderstand interpreting. It's dangerous for the profession for people to still spread invisibility myths because it encourages people to try to replace us with machines. It's dangerous for researchers because we know ourselves that this stuff doesn't work. And the minute that people start spreading that, it means that the job of researchers becomes so much harder to actually counter these myths and actually build a healthier profession, a profession that actually has good PR, that people recognize the work that interpreters do. And it's also dangerous because invisible interpreters are vulnerable interpreters. And too many interpreters have had mental health issues. Too many interpreters have died in the line of duty for us to take invisibility and the myths around it anything less than seriously. I really wish that people who comment on interpreting would take the time to talk to experienced interpreters and experienced interpreting researchers, and especially those who do both. Since at least the 1990s, we've known that the idea of interpreters being invisible and not change anything and just saying what the speaker said doesn't accord with anything in the real world. And it's sad when one real world happening, one real world discussion can begin to undo some of the hard work that interpreting studies researchers and really switched on interpreters have been doing since the 1990s. I don't know about you, but I don't feel right about a good 20 years of work, 30 years of work even, going to waste. So please, if you're going to comment on interpreting, make sure you have the facts straight. If you're going to comment on interpreting, please make sure that what you're saying accords with what we actually know about the profession. And if you're going to comment on interpreting, please take into account that your comments can and will affect people who interpret. This is Dr. Jonathan Downey on Instagram, on YouTube. There will be more YouTube videos coming. There will be more Instagram posts coming. But we can do better. Thank you.